Good night and welcome to our live online tongue meeting. Once again from Studio 21 in Belmopan, we say thank you very much for joining us.
Good night. Thank you once again for inviting me into your homes, offices, wherever you may be watching this broadcast. Damas y caballeros, gracias para invitarme a su casa y cualquier parte que está mirando este programa. This live town hall for Belmopan. Once again, thank you. We look forward to continuing our great conversation for the development of our constituency Belmopan and Belize.
Okay, tonight we are going to look back at some of the things that we've done, and we want to first of all establish certain things that are happening here. We know that last week we had shared with you that Otta was not accepted by the People's United Party. However, what we want to ensure Belizeans and especially our Belmopan citizens that we have not given up and that we are looking at certain options which when we have consulted our community properly, we will have a way forward. Tonight, however, our main focus that we want to look at is that of economic development. A couple of weeks ago, we had started with looking at the wealth of the nation, which is its people, and we have stated that we wanted to, and we brought across that because the people of a nation is important in the development of the nation, the first thing that was important is that of of health. All right, and we looked at the health situation in Belize and ways in which those can be improved. We then look at after we have healthy people, we saw the importance of getting people educated, and tonight we want to look at economic development, making sure that we have now the avenue where these healthy, educated persons can become productive and progressive. All right, so tonight that's where we want to start.
Let me start first by saying that reports of my demise have been greatly exaggerated. This is not a personal agenda that I am on. We in Belmopan have created a force for change that is now amassing into a movement for change. Meaningful change, substantive change. We want better than what we have been given. We want better than what is being offered. And we know that better exists. So tonight, what I aim to do is to continue our conversation, recapping, of course, some of the things that we discussed before. And I invite you to participate as you have in the past weeks that we have been having our town hall, to steer this conversation and to ensure that your input is made as we continue to chart the way forward. The way forward, as my able chairlady has indicated, is not a mystery. It has always been known that the way forward is fully established in the understanding that you the constituents of Belmopan, the residents, the workers, those who depend on the city, and those who strive to be prosperous within the city. It is your voice, your interest that charts the way forward. So I am here once more, making myself accessible and available to you to give me the guidance needed as you chart the way forward. I'm calling you now to action, and the action I call you to tonight is to give an indication of where you want us to go. Any good leader must first be a good follower. I am putting myself and offering myself to be your servant, and I'm coming to you directly, seeking your support to offer my service on your behalf to make Belmopan the place we all know it could be. Tonight is about economic development. And for the most part, when we talk about economic development, the key indicator has always been GDP. Goods and services produced within a country, and the rate of employment or unemployment. In Belize, and certainly in Belmopan as well, the rate of unemployment has been higher than it should ever be. But when we talk about GDP and we only limit the economy to those measures, we are losing the major part of what economics is all about. Economics is about human development. The capacity to ensure that the individual within the economic framework is not only gainfully employed, but able to meet his needs and the needs of his or her family. When we just look at GDP in its simplest form, looking at goods and services and rate of unemployment, we do not see the misery index or the index that charts satisfaction in relation to disposable income and the capacity to meet the various wants that the individual and families may have. For example, travel and vacation, leisure, recreation. We had this in Belmopan before. In the early development of Belmopan, when the first wave of persons came to inhabit the capital, we had a very low misery index. What does that mean? The misery index is measured by the availability or lack thereof of disposable income. Disposable income is that portion of your salary that you have after you've put away some for savings, after you've used some for paying bills, and after you have taken care of the necessary expenses that one would have month after month. The disposable income is used to take the kids to watch the volleyball game. For example, last night at the Civic Center, or taking a trip to the Mountain Pine Ridge, or taking a trip to Placencia for a weekend. This is what reduces the misery index, the availability of disposable income that you can use to do the things that you want to do on your time. We have not had much of that. The disposable income for Belizeans by and large have shrunk, and for the most part it is non-existent, no matter where you're working right now, because the cost of living is so high. The rate of taxation is so high. Cost of fuel is so high. So we have a large misery index, and that large misery index has translated itself into a number of vices in our society, and those vices are becoming manifest in Belmopan and the greater Belmopan area. Just recently, you would have heard of the murder of Richard Foster. He is only one of the latest statistic in relation to the persons that have been murdered. We are hoping here that his murder and other murders can be solved, because their resolution or lack thereof increases the misery index, because it reduces our sense of safety and security. But tonight we are not addressing the crime aspect of things. We are addressing what can be done to improve the economic development of Belmopan. And one of the main ways to doing it, one of the primary ways we can address it, is to look at import substitution. Import substitution occurs when we address a capital good that is used in a major industry that we import from abroad, but we have the capacity to produce here at home. You would see on a weekly basis, whether you live in Belmopan or any part of the country, these huge trailer trucks hauling cement. Cement either comes from Mexico, whether it be Maya, or Guatemala with Progreso, or there was a time when we had Bijao coming out of Trinidad. So we had 3 separate cement suppliers coming from various places, supplying the demand for cement in Belize. Now, when we talk about Belmopan and what could be done to move Belmopan forward in the future, we can look at cement and cement production as the basis for import substitution for Belmopan and Belize. The reason why I say cement is because in Belize we have vast supplies of karst limestone, and we have vast supplies of gypsum. Gypsum is the main cohesive ingredient in cement, and limestone is the main filler ingredient for cement, both of which we have in Belize in great abundance. In fact, in the Belmopan area, we have many limestone mines. When you travel from Belmopan to Dangriga, you will be able to see more than 22 separate limestone depots where people are selling white lime, which is a derivative of limestone. So it's not a situation where we are not knowledgeable of what exists and how to bring it out for it to be used, but we are not fully capitalizing on the profitability and feasibility of its use. Belmopan has a building code, and the building code requires all homes to be built utilizing ferroconcrete construction. So Belmopan has a built-in demand for cement at all times. Belmopan is one of the fastest growing communities in the country. Housing is a great need in Belmopan, and we have space for expansion. So simply looking at the housing market, we can put together the basis for demand for cement. We are spending more than $45 million a year on cement. $45 million a year in foreign exchange goes out for cement. That $45 million can be kept at home, generating income for Belmopan residents. We don't need a huge cement plant, and we do not have to recreate or reinvent the wheel. We already have the Maya people sending their cement here from Mexico, very much similar to Santander, who are here now producing sugar, which should be for the export market. We can invite Maya, the manufacturer of Maya cement, to put in place a small plant in Belmopan for the production of cement, thereby saving us the foreign exchange and putting to use resources that right now are sitting without being utilized. Our anthem says that we have wealth untold. That is true. And that wealth will remain untold until such time as we derive the will to make it usable and realizable for the benefit of our people. So cement could be an anchor industry for Belmopan. And that anchor industry would feed into the other aspect of the overall construction industry. We see on a weekly basis where trucks come in and they pick up scrap metal, older vehicles, and they take them to a depot, and they are further taken outside the country to Mexico or Guatemala, to various scrap yards. Well, they don't remain at scrap yards. They are smelted down and rebar is produced. Rebar is the other main ingredient in the construction industry for ferroconcrete homes. It is not a far-fetched thing for us to have a small foundry in Belmopan to smelt metal for the production of rebar. We attack where there is great demand. There is demand for housing. So if we want to address housing, then we address the capital goods for the construction of homes. We have young people coming up. Young people who are graduating from sixth forms and from universities. They are seeking to have their own homes, to start their own families. If we do not have import substitution and we depend on the government of Belize to build houses for low and middle income people, we will create hyperinflation in the economy where the capital good for construction is concerned, and we'll be putting houses out of reach in terms of the prices of homes, out of reach for the persons who want to go to the banks to buy a new home.
So in other words, we are stabilizing the cost of the materials.
By producing here at home.
Yes.
And by keeping the government of Belize out of the housing market. Whenever the government of Belize enters the housing market, we have corruption and inflation. It places an artificial demand on cement and steel. An artificial demand that does not last very long in terms of the lifespan of projects, but in terms of the inflation in the prices of steel and cement lasts an eternity, and it impacts existing buildings that are on the market and those that are coming on the market. So in order for us to keep the cost of housing low and affordable for our people, it is essential that we engage in import substitution where we can. And cement is one of the areas where we can immediately employ that tactic for our economic development. Belmopan is the best place for the cement plant and the production of cement because we are centrally located, and the conduits for transportation of goods to the south from Belmopan is only 50 miles, to the east from Belmopan 50 miles, to the west 28 miles, and to the north, with the implementation of the new rapid transit highway between Rowan Creek and Orange Walk, 37 miles. This is where we look to have meaningful economic development.
And the cement also can help in building the road. The same road that we're talking about.
Precisely. So I'm here tonight advancing ideas because we must look to elevate our political discourse. We don't seek to run tear-down campaigns. We seek to put forward meaningful solutions for the benefit of our people because it is appreciated that we can do better than what we're doing now. What we set out to do and what I set out to do at this time is not very much for me or for you, but it's for your children and your children's children. We cannot continue to exist in a country that imports more than it produces. We do not have the oil resources of Saudi Arabia or Kuwait. We do not have the gold resources and diamond resources of South Africa. We do not have the bauxite resources of Brazil or even Jamaica. But we have resources that can be used for our development if we had a government that sought to develop the country and people. Cement is used all over the world, and we have the ingredients for the production of cement in abundance. Cement is not a labor-intensive industry. it is almost 100% mechanized. The main aspect in terms of its manual processes is in relation to the mining of limestone and gypsum. Once that is collected and brought to the plant, it is put through an industrial process using machines. But by employing those machines here, of course they would have operators, and producing the cement here, the cost of cement goes down, because the environmental tax and other taxes that are placed on cement once brought in from Mexico and Guatemala would no longer exist. The cost of cement goes down, the affordability of cement goes up, the misery index goes down, because now you are in a position to access this capital good at a lower cost and in higher quantities.
And at the same time, we are looking at the private sector development when we do things like this.
Precisely. Well, all this is about private sector development and private sector growth, because a cement plant is a private sector issue and concern, a productive sector issue and concern. We cannot continue to think small in Belize, and Belmopan is not the place for small thinking or small thinkers. We must think big. We want to usher in a new era of economic exceptionalism. It has to start in Belmopan. We are the incubator of growth for the nation. We are the capital. Estaba explicando una visión para el desarrollo económico de nuestra constituencia, nuestra ciudad, Belmopan. Y en esta visión estoy explicando que la producción de cemento podría ser un gran parte de la industria nueva en Belmopan, porque en esta área nosotros tenemos limestone y gypsum, que son los dos ingredientes mayor para la fabricación de cemento. Y por eso estoy explicando que nuestra gente podría recibir trabajo, oportunidad, empleo en este proceso, para asegurar que hay la habilidad a producir cemento aquí localmente, y nos vamos a ahorrar esta plata que estamos gastando para importar cemento de Guatemala y de México y a veces de Trinidad y Tobago. Cuando hay esta plata dentro del país, es más plata para compartir con la gente, para asegurar que nuestra gente haya más oportunidades, y especialmente la gente que quiere construir casas y edificios. Nosotros necesitamos pensar más de cosas como esta, porque es necesario para asegurar que podíamos introducir más oportunidades para invertir, más oportunidades para crecer económicamente. So I've been trying now to direct in one way how we can boost private sector activity here in Belmopan, and what could be done, what could be a central feature of that new development. Cement. It's everywhere around us. We see it. In fact, they are starting to build streets from it now. But in Belmopan, we had, from the onset, homes made from cement. And we want to continue to have beautiful buildings made from cement. But we want it to be Belizean cement. We aspire to have Belizean cement produced in Belmopan. So if you're out there listening to me at this time, by all means, I want to hear from you. We are starting the drive for 3,000. So I'm introducing, on the one hand, the vision for economic development, but on the other hand, I'm also introducing the drive for 3,000. And what do I mean by the drive for 3,000? The drive for 3,000 starts from tonight. I'm seeking from my audience, those of you who are taking the time to view this broadcast and to listen to our town hall, to indicate to me if you are a voter in Belmopan, and if you have listened to the town halls that we have produced over the past 3 months. Are these the ideas you want to bring to Parliament? I need 3,000. If 3,000 members of the audience out there can indicate to me that these are the ideas you want in Parliament, if you want to elevate the discourse for development, give me that indication. This is how you guide me. This is how we chart the way forward. I'm calling you to act in this regard. We have very important issues impacting the nation and impacting Belmopan. These issues are bigger than me. Hence the reason I have not advanced any personal agenda since last week, after all that has transpired. Because what is taking place is more important. The question of the ICJ and whether we go to the ICJ is bigger than me. And I will not provide any distraction to you from that important issue. We have to be sober and mature in looking at the question of whether or not we go to the ICJ. So I want to introduce that topic again tonight.
But before we go into the ICJ, Arthur, we have a couple of questions, and as everybody who has watched our broadcast knows, we don't run away from questions. First, let us say good night to Lucy Laura. Pleasant good evening to Mr. Mike Osha, to Miss Ione Ordonez, Ernesto, Timbrell, Lisa Saldivar, Sadia. Thank you very much. Victoria, thank you for joining us.
Good night.
Mr.
Good
Mike
night.
Osha has asked, however, to deviate a little bit.
Sure.
Why is that we must wait until until there is a change in government before court action can be taken against ministers of government who commit criminal acts?
We don't have to wait until there's a change of government to take action. The issue is a little bit, all right, let me say this. When we talk about criminal acts, the DPP is the only person who is charged with the constitutional responsibility to bring forward criminal charges against anyone. The police department brings criminal charges as it relates to matters that are tried in the magistrate's court, in the inferior court, under his prosecution branch, but the branch still comes under the guidance of the DPP. Private individuals can pursue private prosecutions, but it's a process that you must still go through the DPP. So the issue of persons in government, ministers of government committing crimes, it must first be deemed a crime by the DPP. Or individuals who can identify that it is a crime must bring it to the attention of the DPP, giving her or him the opportunity to act. So it is not that criminal acts committed by ministers cannot be addressed until a change of government. They can. In fact, the issue involving Elvin Penner comes to mind. Government had not changed and still hasn't changed. But of course we know that that prosecution was undermined from the start. And therein lies the rub. There's a number of issues that makes the criminal prosecution of sitting ministers ineffective. But one of it, and the main part of it, is that these ministers belong to unincorporated associations. And unincorporated associations, known as the mass parties in Belize, PUP and UDP, have no legal status. So they cannot be sued in their own capacity. Only in the representative capacity can they be sued.
All right.
When those parties are accountable, their representatives can be made accountable. If we want meaningful change, we must demand that political parties no longer remain unincorporated associations. The unincorporated association was something needed in the 1940s and 50s, when it was sedition and treason to register any group or association that sought to topple the colonial regime. But since 1981, there has been no such fear. The only reason they remain that way is for corrupt purposes.
All right. Mr. Usher also wanted to know what is your opinion on the Westminster system and how it serves Belize.
We do not have the Westminster system, Mr. Mike. What we have is the Westminster export model. The Westminster export model is different than the Westminster system in that we have a written constitution that establishes supremacy of the Constitution. The Westminster system is characterized by supremacy of Parliament. No, we have not applied the Westminster export model in Belize, because as much as we claim to have a constitution and are a constitutional democracy, the democracy has never been given a chance to work. I'll just list a couple of the ways that our constitutional democracy has been undermined. Democracy depends on two major pillars: the rule of law and the separation of powers. The rule of law establishes that no one is above the law. Not the ordinary citizen, not the ministers of government, not the judges, not lawyers, not anyone. No one is above the law. However, we have seen where, as you have rightly stated, there have been times when crimes have been committed by members of parliament and nothing has happened. Because the collective security of cabinet has come to the rescue of many scoundrels in power. So Parliament has been made supreme in that regard. The separation of powers is the other aspect, where you have three separate branches of government: the legislature, the executive, and the judiciary. The head of the legislature is the Speaker of the House. The head of the judiciary, the head of the executive, is the Prime Minister of Belize. The head of the judiciary is the Chief Justice of Belize. The legislature, however, is made up of two houses: the Senate and the House of Representatives. The Senate is a group of appointed people, but they are the ones who approve laws and also the ones who initiate investigations into wrongdoings in ministries by ministers. So when you have persons who come from the private sector who don't offer themselves to be elected in an election, but are given the privilege of becoming members of the Senate and then advanced into the executive to become ministers, this is a direct undermining of the separation of powers. Again, we have seen this very recently in its manifestation under Godwin Holtz as Minister of Immigration. We all remember when the first call came for an investigation of the wrongdoings at immigration, Minister Godwin Holtz stood up in the Senate meeting and voted no. He voted against an investigation of the ministry that he was the minister of. A direct conflict of interest, a direct usurpation of the separation of powers. The right and decent thing to have been done would have been for Godwin Holtz to recuse himself. But he should not have been put in that position in the first place. There are others who want to be just like him and be given the opportunity to serve as ministers of government without putting themselves before the people of Belize to be elected. This is an undermining of our democracy, and it renders it ineffective. We cannot continue this way. It is a farce and a fraud on our Constitution. I hope I've answered your question.
All right. Then we had Alejandro Koch, who asked, so why did you took the money, the COI money before time or payment, hence we don't believe you?
Well,
I don't know what the question is, because he answered and a couple answered came in on that we have discussed this time and time again, and either he has not seen our broadcast or he doesn't understand English. Those were the comments made.
Thank you for your contribution, Mr. Cook. Go back and look at the other town halls. Again, I'm here. My life is an open book. I come to you weekly to answer every question and any question. But certainly I believe I've hammered that one to death.
Alright. And then Anthony O.C. writes, Mr. Castillo, nobody wants to be run by government that was reproductive. People don't forget. Look how Belize are now with 12 years. I'm not sure.
Repeat that? I didn't get that.
I'm reading as I have it here. So, Mr. Castillo, nobody wants to be run by a government that was reproductive. People don't forget look how Belize are now with 12 years.
For 12 years. I'm not too sure what the I'm not too sure what the person is seeking to advance, but in 12 years our economy has fallen so far that the only country we are outperforming is Haiti. So with all the streets that have been built, with the beautiful civic center built by Mexico, by the way, and all the other things that you have seen, our economy has not grown, and our people have not, or the lives of our people have not improved. In any democratic society, there is need for three main classes of people. Three classes must exist, but the most important class that has to exist to keep democracy alive is the middle class. Without a strong and growing middle class, democracy cannot survive. I don't remember the name of the last person who put the question forward, but
Mr. Anthony, it was pointed out just now that he was referring to another comment, and let us be clear there. He said, when Mr. Usher had asked why is it that government ministers can't be charged until government change, Mr. Castillo had written, because this government has a record of protecting its criminal representatives and parliamentarians. And so I guess he was answering Mr. Castillo there when we were...
okay,
Alright,
okay.
so
Yes, but just to address something that came out from what he was saying. You see, the middle class in Belize has been shrinking at a very rapid rate. This poses a threat to our democracy. The reason why we are seeing so many crimes, violent crimes and crimes of opportunity, has been as a result of the shrinking middle class and the growing poorer class. The poorer class of people is growing at a rapid rate. We have people talking about working poor. Working poor. Those are two things that really shouldn't go together. Working poor. A person that is working, that is putting his energies into productive labor, should not be poor.
But I guess when you have to work 3 hours for a gallon of gas,
Then
you
Yes.
become a working poor.
You'll be working poor.
Yes.
Because the cost of living is at such a high rate that the minimum wage cannot reach. When minimum wage is at $3.30 an hour or less, and a gallon of gas is at $11.25 or $11.52, or maybe by tomorrow morning $11.90. Who knows?
You have to work 4 hours, then when you reach $12.
For working poor. So I want the viewers to understand. Look past the cosmetics, because all the cosmetics that has been put in place were put in place with borrowed money. Petro-Caribe money, Venezuelan money, squandered over 700 million. And if Belmopan has 25 streets to talk about, we have a lot. We do not have 25 streets out of the Venezuelan money. we still have to pay that money back. And at the rate that our economy is going, we will have to borrow to pay back. No, this is no way for us. There is nothing for us to be proud of here. Last night, I, along with so many of us in Belize, was so very proud of our young women, the national volleyball team, and their accomplishment of securing the silver medal for Belize. So proud to watch them defeat Guatemala, our neighbor to the west and south. Was wonderful. Loved it. We had a 15-year-old from Belmopan who was a part of that team. Very proud of her. Two of the athletes from Belmopan, but in particular, I was looking at that young lady and her accomplishments, the points that she made. She energized the team, helped us to secure that fourth set and bring home the victory in the fifth set. But I've heard so many people marvel at the Civic Center, and certainly it's a nice building. We should have buildings like that all over Belize. When we have international tournaments, it should not only be in the city that we have these games. These games should be hosted in Belmopan as well, in San Ignacio also, and other parts of the country. So don't tell me about one city civic center and $30 million spent on it. Thank God for Mexico and their generosity, or we wouldn't have it.
We have another question from Miss Jennifer Arzu. She's asking, how will you address those voters who live in Kaya South villages but vote in Belmopan for general and municipal elections?
Jennifer, thank you for the question. Good night. Very important question. One of the stated goals of re-registration was to ensure that voters vote where they live. Now, I will tell you this. I consider Rowan Creek, Kamalote, and Tea Kettle part of Belmopan. To be honest with you, my vision is to encompass these communities, but they are not there yet. They are not officially part of Belmopan yet. But Belmopan's expansion will take those communities in eventually. For now, however, it is certainly a fraud to have any person from Rowan Creek, Kamalote, or Tea Kettle come into Belmopan to register deliberately to be on the Belmopan voters list. This is what re-registration is supposed to address. But unfortunately, it does not. Mainly because the election and boundaries officers are waiting at a fixed location for persons to come in and register, and then they go out and do investigations after. Which the law only says that the head of the household is the one who can determine who lives there or doesn't live there. So if the head of the household says John Brown lives here, it doesn't matter where John Brown actually lives. They will get on the voters list. What I will tell those people, Jennifer, because as long as you're a voter in Belmopan, I will have to address you. I will tell those people, and I will have to show those people that, listen, you have been given a promise that if you come here, life will be better for you. You don't actually live here, but life will be better for you. There are policies and programs that we are putting in place, that would be put in place in Belmopan, to make that actually happen, to create more jobs for the people of Belmopan and those in the surrounding areas. The expansion of private sector businesses, industry in Belmopan, will create job opportunities for residents of Belmopan and for those persons who routinely and normally come into Belmopan to find work. So yes, Kaya South will benefit from Belmopan's economic development. We cannot ignore the reality of what is taking place. The outgoing era rep has made it a practice to pad the list. And given what has been done and what has been the decisions made by the recognized opposition, there is not much opposition to what is actually being done to pad the list. I can only depend on you, the people of Belmopan, to use moral suasion. That when you recognize persons coming in to the electoral offices to register that you know don't live here, raise the alarm. Let's put pressure on them to do the right thing. Let them know that they are being noticed. But once they get on the list, we will have to address those persons like any other person in Belmopan. Fortunately for me, I know Roaring Creek, I know Kamalote, I know Tiketu, and I know the people of those communities as I do Belmopan.
Salim Ahmed says, main concern is country's economy. None of the minister is so far giving the idea of bringing more economy to Belize rather than spending. How is it possible economy will be in plus?
Yes. As I said, import substitution has to be one of our main objectives. We have to put ourselves in a position to save foreign exchange. We cannot be spending foreign exchange that we don't have to spend. I reiterate tonight that cement should be a focus for import substitution. $45 million a year is nothing to sneeze at. It's a lot of money. And $45 million a year can go a long way in developing Belmopan. We want to keep that money at home. We have all the ingredients and we know where the technology is. Invite the people from Maya. As I've said before, we must put in place an economic processing zone in Belmopan to attract certain factories and industries to come in under a favorable tax regime that the EPZ presents. You invite then the companies that we know have the technology to produce. Cement could be an anchor product in the EPZ. Once they are in place and it's being produced here, is Maya Cement Belize. It then has not only the ability to be sold here locally, but we can also export it. One of the reasons why the EPZ has not worked for us the way it should is that I believe the EPZ legislation is incomplete. At the present time, the EPZ legislation prohibits those who produce under it from selling locally. Hence the whole issue with Santander and sugar. I am against Santander being here producing sugar. That's not where we needed import substitution. If more sugar needed to have been produced, then we should have given incentives to the cane farmers and the existing sugar factory to expand for greater sugar production. Santander was not needed here. But certainly we need Maya. And we bring Maya in under our Commonwealth and CARICOM regime so that they can vertically integrate the Commonwealth markets, bypassing GATT and WTO restrictions, and making the cement profitable for export to those countries once produced in Belize, right here in Belmopan. A portion of that, a percentage of that would be made available to the local market to suffice local demand. This is what we do to move our country forward, to increase our capacity for economic growth. Yes.
And Mr. Salim continues just now. He says, good point. That will create economy, jobs, plus lower the cost. And that will also create a franchise in the entire Belize as well.
Yes.
Alright. We seem to be fast running out of time. We want to now focus from economy now, and as we usually use the last half an hour, we have less than a half an hour now. We only have 20 minutes to look at ICJ. We know that this April, which is only a few months away, we have the vote where Belizeans are supposed to go to the polls to vote whether we go to settle our dispute at the ICJ. For us, we know our position. It's a
No.
no.
Again,
Right.
and I reiterate this, and I will say this without any fear or equivocation. We have the most important issue of our lifetime facing us. This is an existential question. And I don't believe that there is any hyperbole in saying so. The question has been, is the ICJ so important that it is necessary for all Belizeans to vote? I say yes. All Belizeans must vote. Whether we are here in Belize, living and fulfilling the 2 months ordinary residency requirement, or abroad in the diaspora, we all must vote. The other day, I believe the leader of the Courtney party made a statement that the diaspora should be made to vote. Well, I'm glad that the Courtney party and its leader has weighed in on this issue, because the avatar who speaks on Courtney's behalf said that he would be voting yes to the ICJ, and he supports keeping diaspora, the Belizean diaspora, from voting in the referendum. So this is one situation where the puppet and the puppet master have different messages. We must address that, because the two cannot be reconciled. They cannot exist together at the same time. It's either one or the other. But we have to ensure that all Belizeans are given the franchise. The vote is a right, not a privilege. It's a constitutional right. Now, some of my colleagues in the legal profession have been quick to tell me that there is no expressed right to vote in the Constitution. And I must accept that part 2 of the Constitution, which is our fundamental rights and freedoms, does not expressly state that there is a right to vote. It's true. However, my retort is that we enjoy equal protection under the law. And where there is a privilege enjoyed by one, it must be a privilege enjoyed by all, since there is no express right. And my friend, you know who I am talking to. I'm telling you direct. I agree with you. The Constitution says there is no right to vote. Doesn't contain that. However, it is one of our inalienable rights. Otherwise, we cannot consider ourselves a democracy. It's only by voting that we manifest the nature of our democracy, electing those who represent us. There is also a protection against discrimination in our Constitution, and we must give it the widest meaning, because I cannot see how one can argue that having persons cross over the border from Guatemala on election day to vote is okay. Guatemalans with Belizean papers, I should say, cross over the border to vote on election day from Melchor. But the Belizean flying from Chicago or from Mexico or from Holland or the UK or Tel Aviv cannot exercise that same privilege. I cannot see how that would not be considered discrimination. Again, my friend, you brought the argument to me. I am bringing the argument back to you, and we are going to continue this when we meet again, because I know you're watching. But we must, in this time, make it abundantly clear that there can be no referendum where Belizeans in the diaspora are excluded from voicing their position on the subject, especially when Guatemalans are being made to vote. Why do I say that? We know of 2,000 Guatemalans that were granted Belizean citizenship unlawfully. This was revealed during the Senate inquiry into the immigration scandal. We still don't know who those 2,000 Guatemalans are. And it seems that the referendum day will come and we still won't know. And what if the 2,000 Guatemalans form the difference between a yes and a no? What if the vote comes down to that thin sliver that makes the difference? 2,000 votes. Man, I believe it is the New York's 14th district, I believe. I'm not too sure. Not too well versed on my American politics right now, but there was a congressional race recently, I think yesterday, and the margin was 1%. Few thousand votes that separate the winner from the loser. This is what elections are about. Every vote counts. And 2,000 votes in Belize is the difference in over 10 to 15 constituencies. 2,000 votes. In Kaya North, the margin was less than 300 votes. In Stan Creek West, the margin was less than 10 votes. I mean, I could go down so many of them, so many constituencies where the margin was so small. So 2,000 votes is quite a lot. And we have not heard a peep from the Senate or from immigration in relation to those 2,000 legal Guatemalans. Where are they? What has happened to their passport? Eamon Courtney was one of the persons who was one of the interrogators, one of the senators leading the interrogation. Is he not interested in what's going on there? Has he given us a report and an indication as to where we are in that process? Or does he not care? We must remember, and I want to be clear about this, there is a term in law called negligence. Negligence occurs when you have a legal duty and you breach that duty, and as a result of that breach, someone that you owe the duty to gets harmed. Well, the senator owes a duty to us, the people of Belize. And until those 2,000 Guatemalans are made known to us, he is in breach of that duty. And we may likely suffer grave injury by losing our referendum if those 2,000 people are made to vote. So let's put him on notice. We're watching you on this. Have big mouth for everything else, have big mouth for this.
Amira Smith say, you're banned. You should be given that right. Because you are a Belizean. And I agree with you. You are a Belizean. And at the end of the day, Guatemala has nothing to lose. And Belize has everything to lose.
We have our entire economic future to lose. If Guatemala's claim is entertained in any meaningful way, and there is no guarantee that it won't, Belize stands to lose our watershed area, because the south is where we have the Maya Mountains. The south is where the watershed is. We have the best water, quality of water in the world. Nobody tell about the Ozarks. I've been to the Ozarks. And the water not tastes half as good as the Gumaga Rugo. Not half as good. Make nobody tell you, we have the best water in the world. The best. And water is the most important resource. And in terms of its monetization, it will be more valuable than oil in the next 20, 25 years. So many countries don't have reliable water supply. Countries like Qatar, which are immensely rich financially, don't have that very important resource, have to buy it and import it from elsewhere. Now we are looking to put our water supply in jeopardy by going to the ICJ. These people have not thought through fully what they're asking us to do. They're asking us to gamble with our economic future, our children and our grandchildren and our children's future. We cannot do that. There is a better way. There is a better way. My position is not to do nothing. That is not what I am suggesting. that we do nothing, but I am strongly suggesting that we don't do that. We don't go to the ICJ.
And that's the thing, Arthur. What we need to let people understand, we are not saying no and just leaving it like that. We're saying no and we're giving an alternative. But before we get into the alternative, Amira Smith writes, Eamon just find interest to try get some credit and look like he have love for the country. While Salim continues to say, I agree, Belize have the best water because of the accurate pH and salt. And Michael Usher writes, I believe the best way to educate the Belizean people in regards to going or not going to the ICJ is by public debate, by television and radio station, plus all social medias.
Yes, and we are doing it. I will do my part. This is my home, my native land. And I love it.
Okay,
more than any other.
Let's look with, I think we have 4 minutes to go before our time will elapse. Looking at just saying no, there is a proposal that you have come forward with as it relates to the ICJ, which we believe would be viable in getting Guatemala to settle and to stop making this claim on Belize. Because whether we like it or not, there was an agreement between England and Guatemala. However, England did not carry out their share. So you had offer, you had acceptance, but where you did not carry out what you had promised, there is not that agreement anymore.
Listen, the issue that we have is one that can be solved very easily. It doesn't require much. What it requires, most of all, is the will. Political will and leadership. There is nothing preventing Dean Barrow or any leader or head of state from Belize to fly over to Guatemala City, reserve a room, take your leader of the Chamber of Commerce, take your Attorney General, and invite Jimmy Morales and his people, and you get into a room and have a discussion on how Belize and Guatemala can work together for mutual economic advancement. We are neighbors. We are not enemies. We are neighbors. It's time to put aside this nonsense and come together in a meaningful way for mutual development. Going to the ICJ is an excuse for the lack of leadership. We do not want excuses anymore. We require leadership. And leadership requires confronting the situation in a mature way to iron out a meaningful solution that doesn't see us ceding any territory, but seeing us working together to develop what we have so that we can integrate fully and get the full benefits of integration into Central America and the Caribbean. Belize was poised to be the bridge between Central America and the Caribbean. And I have to use it in the past tense right now, because our development has been so retarded that every Central American country that wants to do business with the Caribbean has gone around us, circumvented us totally. Costa Rica and Trinidad trading directly with each other. Jamaica and Guatemala trading directly with each other. Nothing coming through Belize. Why? Because we have not had leadership. Since the passing of George Price, no leadership. Bunch of pretenders, but no leaders. So here we are now in 2018, taking the most tremendous step backwards that would have never been countenanced, that would have never been entertained or even contemplated by George Price or Philip Wilson. Can you conceive of Philip Wilson coming to the Belizean people and saying, let's go to the ICJ to have Guatemala be given a chance to get half of Belize? I cannot. Can you conceive of George Price doing so? I cannot. The fact is, they would never have, especially not with what is being proposed. Understand, there will be no English judge at the ICJ. Guatemala will not tell us what its claim is until after the referendum is done. The judges at the ICJ will look at the total state of both countries before they make their determination, not just the law. As much as the pundits and armchair generals in Belize would want to tell you that the law is the law and that's all is going to be looked at, that is never true. That is never true. There is no court of law manned by men where the law is all that is looked at. Not in criminal courts, not in civil courts, and certainly not in international courts. Eminent jurists have told us, like Roscoe Pound, there is no law until the judge pronounces it. And the lady in the red dress may be the difference between you going home or getting life. Simple things could influence the minds of men, and judges, despite all the legal training, are just that, men or women. So we're taking a risk, one that we need not take, one that certainly would be irresponsible for us to take. Step back. There is another course. Next week I will talk about the Gladden Plan and what that could mean for the resolution of the Belize-Guatemala fiasco. Because there is no dispute.
Just before we leave, we have one Miss Dorita Martinez who writes, I cannot support this man. He is a corrupt GOB. I'm asking which man is a corrupt GOB. I'm not understanding. She's not making herself clear. However, we have been asking the question, but it's like GOB. She writes again. I'm not sure, Miss Martinez, if your first language is English. Maybe we want to ask you which man you're talking about, love. Who is GOB man that you're talking about? They talk the talk. Who they, my love? All right. Faith account. All right. But Okay, we have gone past 5 minutes past our 9:30 deadline, and we want to say thank you to all those who took time out tonight to listen to us and to be a part of this conversation. And we ask you to bear patient with us as we get certain kinks out of the way. We want to say thank you for tuning in. And with that, Arthur, you do it in Spanish, but God bless. And thank you. See you next week. Same time, same place.
Buenas noches, gracias por todos. Estoy invitando toda mi gente aquí en Belmopan para regresar la próxima semana, mismo día, mismo tiempo, para continuar nuestra gran conversación del desarrollo de nuestra constituencia Belmopan y nuestro país, Belize. Thank you everyone for once again welcoming me into your homes and sharing this time with me. Thanks for being a part, thanks for participating. I look forward to having you again next Thursday, same place, same time, live from Studio 21. Thank you and good night.
Good
Buenas
night.
noches.
Night, night.